Do you have multiple ages and you homeschool? Well, I wanted to show you this picture because I have a 10-year gap between my oldest and my youngest. Right here, they're 15 and 5, and then there's a 4.5-year gap and a 3.5-year gap. So what do you do when you have kids at so many different age levels when you're homeschooling? It can be a really big challenge, but I have a super good answer for you, and that is poetry. If you want a way to enjoy homeschooling together as a group, poetry is a perfect place to start. Because with poetry, you can use one poem to read to all your children, and they can all get a benefit out of it, no matter what their ages are. And I'm talking even all the way down to 2 years old, 1.5-year-old. Any age can enjoy poetry together. So, one of the major reasons why is because with one poem, you can address all their different age levels, all their different ability levels of learning. So you can read a single poem, and the youngest ones might have it as simple as answering the question, what does this poem mean to you? Or what happened in the poem? That's a nice, easy question that any age can get. Then, the benefit of doing this with multiple ages is the younger children get to hear the older children answer. And what is the benefit of that? Well, people always talk about socialization and how children need to be socialized. But what they don't really understand is that having multiple ages of children learning together is its own form of socialization. The younger children have the benefit of learning and hearing what older children have to say about the things they're learning. And poetry is no exception to that. So even though your youngest child might only be able to answer the question of what is the poem about or what do you think it means, then the next age up child might be able to answer something like, well, what was the hidden meaning inside that? And maybe the oldest one can then apply it to life and maybe their own personal experiences. So from one single poem that everybody can enjoy together, you're able to get a lesson for every single child, and both the older and the younger children get a benefit of hearing how the other children are interpreting that poem. Not only that, they can also hear what you think the poem means and things that you can interpret it from it. Another amazing thing that you always get for poetry is vocabulary. So, no matter if they're younger or older, if your younger children are hearing and learning more complicated vocabulary that your older children are picking up, they are going to start using it. And I can promise you, because this is one of the things that blew my mind with poetry. When I started doing poetry with my kids, my oldest was 8, right? So 8, which means my youngest was just barely born. And the boys were very broad in age and abilities. My youngest was 2 and wasn't even talking yet. And then I had a really bright middle boy. And then the older boy, he was already 8. So we were able to already be holding conversations about poetry. And I started noticing them picking up the vocabulary because they would ask me, hey, Mom, what does that word mean? They started using the words in their everyday life, which just blew me away because adults didn't even use those words. So that is an amazing thing that you can get from the poetry. Also, you don't need separate lessons, right? As you can tell from what I'm talking about here. You do not need separate lessons when it comes to poetry because every single child can be served at their place. Youngest children can answer the questions again about, or where was this poem set? It could be something as simple as that. And then they can figure out, or what did you hear the person say in the poem? It could be really basic. Where at the same time, your oldest child could actually be picking it apart and trying to tell and share with everybody else what they think the poem actually means. Okay? And because of this, poetry can grow with your children. Because poems are so adaptable to the different ages of children that you have, you can still be reading the same poems when they're older, and you don't have to miss out on the deep conversations that you had with your older children just because you already did it. There's so many classic poems that are amazing to read to your family, and I want to share one of them with you to show you an example. So this poem is called The Road Not Taken, and it's by Robert Frost, and this is a classic one that lots of people know, okay? 2 roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry it could not travel both. And be one traveler long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other just as far and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that, the passing there had warned them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence, 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Okay, so that simple poem, with little teeny children, you could say, well, what season was it that he was traveling in the woods? And what does it mean that there were 2 roads that diverged inside the wood, right? So your children will learn what diverged mean, and they get to use their thinking cap and figure out that this is taking place in fall or early winter, right? So they are able to pick that apart. So you can even go more into a little bit older children, like in leaves, no step had trodden black. It's like, well, what does that mean for leaves to not have step trodden black? Okay. But of course, as leaves get trampled upon, they kind of get mushed and don't look so great anymore. So those are the types of things that the younger kids, and then the older kids are able to look at this and understand or try to figure out why. Okay, I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence, 2 roads diverged in a yellow wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. So you can ask your older children, hey, why did his choice make all the difference? Why did he also say that most likely he would never make it back to that other path? This could be a discussion about choices we make in life, about how even though there might be 2 great choices, that both of them will have a great outcome for you. There's so many things you can discuss. So don't forget that if you have a wide range of children, spread out, large gaps, any of those types of things, poetry is your place to go to still have a great connected experience with all of your kids, no matter their ages. So don't forget to do this. And this is why poetry works for all families. Poetry meets kids where they're at. And if you liked this video, please like and subscribe, because I'll be having lots more like it coming up also. And if there's anybody you know with lots of kids with a great big age range, make sure you share this with them so that way they can have the benefit of poetry in their homeschool too.